We're just aware of it. I will say that Josh is okay, and I'm not at liberty to comment on it until I get more facts. But we do have word that Josh is okay, and we are looking into the matter.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm tired of being disrespected. So there was no question I was going to play this year.
We are now the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, the saying goes, all good things must come to an end, and the Raiders' inaugural season in Las Vegas ended with an 8-8 record. Welcome into Vegas Nation Blitz, everyone. I'm your host, Cassie Soda. The Raiders did end their season on a high note with a 32-31 victory over the Denver Broncos on Sunday. Let's go ahead and bring in Las Vegas Review Journal Raiders beat writer Vinny Bonsignor. Vinny, before we get to any game details, we do have to start with some serious news here, and that is regarding Raiders running back Josh Jacobs. Hours after that win in Denver, the second-year player was arrested on a suspected DUI after a single vehicle car crash. What do we know about this incident?
Well, it's not good. That's first and foremost. As I mentioned yesterday, the only good thing to come out of this is that nobody was hurt. It looks like Josh Jacobs came out of the accident okay. No one else was hurt, and as we've seen far too often in situations like this, that isn't always the case. So that's a good thing. But just to reiterate, this is what coaches worry about and teams worry about throughout the season, but in particular when the offseason starts. These guys go their separate ways basically, and that's where the worry kind of starts. That when guys get away from the structure of the daily 24-hour schedule of football, trouble can sometimes happen. So hopefully this isn't indicative of things to come at all. And it's an isolated incident, but it's what coaches absolutely worry about.
Well, like you said, luckily nobody was hurt. Josh Jacobs coming away with just minor injuries, what we know of in that incident report. Let's go ahead, Vinny, and get back to some football here. Let's talk about this season finale. The Raiders sweeping the Broncos this season. What did you make of this final game?
Well, I thought it was, it was good that they played through the finish line. Obviously this season didn't end the way the Raiders wanted it to. At 8-8, they had aspirations of being a playoff team. There was a time during the season when they were standing there at 6-3, where they thought they were in a pretty good position to make the playoffs. That didn't happen, and that's a disappointment. Just finishing on a strong note was good, but really, I think that it starts the offseason immediately. That's really what Sunday represented. Yes, they were professionals. They played through the finish line. They finished on a winning note, but the reality is it wasn't really so much of an end as it was really the beginning of the next phase, and that's to get better, specifically on defense. I think the Raiders this year were a tale of two teams. Offensively, they were playoff caliber. They finished 10th in the league in scoring. They were a playoff caliber offense by every single measure. And really, when you look at it, the 9 teams that scored a few more points than they did, or just more points than they did per game, ahead of them, the 9 teams, they're all in the playoffs. So every team in the top 10 in scoring is in the playoffs, except for the Raiders. What does that tell you? It tells you that their defense was really bad, and that's what they need to get fixed. And I think that they're already starting that quest and that objective, as we speak, to try to find a new defensive leader, a new vision in their defensive coordinator position. So that's first and foremost, is getting that defense fixed. And if they could do that, we're talking about a different Raider team next year.
Oh, you mentioned it there, Vinny. The Raiders are looking over some resumes already, making some phone calls for that defensive coordinator position. Before we get into it, let's go ahead and hear from John Gruden and the sort of person he's looking for to fill that role.
I think number one, great communication, a guy that can develop players, a man that will utilize his assistant coaches and allow them to express themselves and get more out of their units, and a guy that has a history of success, a guy that has a great day-to-day work ethic and knowledge of the offenses that he has to stop, and a real desire to be a Raider. I think there's a lot of criteria, but there's some for you.
Well, Vinny, what do we know as of right now? What are the Raiders doing, looking for that new defensive coordinator?
Well, a couple of names to keep in mind, and that's Gus Bradley, who worked with John Gruden. Actually, John Gruden hired him in 2006 off the staff at North Dakota State to be his linebacker coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A couple years later, Gus Bradley is helping build the Legion of Boom in Seattle, a defense that ended up helping the Seahawks win a Super Bowl championship. So that's a name to keep in mind. Joe Barry, the assistant head coach and linebacker coach from the Los Angeles Rams. The Raiders are expected to seek permission and sit down and talk to Joe about the job. Joe's connection with the Raiders. He worked for John Gruden in Tampa Bay. He's also the son-in-law of Rod Marinelli, he's the interim defensive coordinator right now. He's expected to stay on staff in some capacity next year. Raheem Morris, the interim head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, is in that mix. But I think if you were to gauge it right now, Bradley and Barry are probably your top two candidates.
Vinny, thank you so much for all your hard work this season. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, and likewise, Cassie.
In other news, the Los Angeles Chargers fired head coach Anthony Lynn on Monday. Lynn coached the Chargers for 4 seasons and won a wild card game in 2018. Meanwhile, Doug Marrone was fired as the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach a day after the team finished its season at 1-15. The Jaguars have the top pick in this year's draft. The Denver Broncos said John Elway will give up the general manager title and remain president of football operations. The team will hire a new GM who will report to Elway. Welcome into Vegas Nation Blitz. I'm your host, Cassie Soto, joined by Las Vegas Review-Journal sports columnist Ed Graney. Ed, it's that time of year, your favorite. Everybody loves it, love to hate it. Give me your grades here. Let's start with the Raiders offense. How would you grade them as a whole in their inaugural season in Las Vegas?
I'm writing it so they do hate it. I'll be getting the emails. But if we start with the offense, I'm going to give them a B. And look, individually, they had a lot of A performances. Derek Carr, career high in yards. He was Pro Football Focus number 8 ranked quarterback in the NFL. Darren Waller broke Tim Brown's record. We know that. Nelson Aguilar had a career year in yardage for him, had the second most touchdowns over 20 yards. All these individual players, Josh Jacobs, Pro Bowl. But Cassie, in the end, in the last 6 weeks, they turned the ball over too much and they went away from the running game. Either went away from it or they just couldn't execute it. So I'm going to stay with the B on the offense. I think it's a fair grade. Like I said, you have a lot of A performances, but as a whole, I thought over the last 6 or 7 weeks, they missed something. They led the league in fumbles with 16, the Raiders. So when that happens, kind of hard to give any kind of unit an A, but I think it's a solid B.
All right, well, let's move on to special teams now. What is the grade there?
There's your A. Is that an A? I don't know how to do it. Anyway, that's the A. Daniel Carlson led the team in scoring. He broke Sebastian Janikowski's record for team points in scoring. I thought Carlson had a terrific bounce back year. I think he only missed 2 extra points, a couple field goals. Led the NFL, I believe, in field goals from 20 to 29 yards. He was 18 of 18. I thought A.J. Cole was solid. I don't think he's the best punter in the league, but he was solid, did his job. I think 20 of 44 downed with inside the 20, like that for them. And you know what? I really think they have found something in Hunter Renfrow, the punt returner. 11.5 yards per punt return. Hunter Renfrow catches the ball. He secures it. Yes, in the future, you want those returns maybe to get bigger chunks of yards, maybe take 1 or 2 back a season. It's harder to do, easier said than done. But if Hunter Renfrow can continue to improve as a punt returner, I think they're really solid in special teams for years to come.
All right. Well, how about coaching? What is the grade for the coaching staff in the inaugural season in Las Vegas?
What's 8-8? It's dead flat average. You get a C. I mean, you're judged on what your record is, and they're 8-8. They started 6-3. They finished 8-8. How you finished? They finished, as I wrote today in the paper, dead flat average. It's just the way it is. They were pretty good on offense, really bad on defense. It kind of balances out and gets you a C and gets you 8-8. So John Gruden's got to be better. John Gruden continues to say he has to do a better job. He's not lying. Has to do a better job drafting. Their draft picks have not come through on the most part for them, and he has to do a better job coaching. So for this year, you're 8-8. You're a C.
We saved the best for last. The defense. A's all around here, right? Gold medals for everybody.
Did you just try to make an F? I don't know how. I don't know how to do that. I'm not good at that stuff. I'm going to give them an F. Look, this was the main part of this team. The main problem, I should say. The main problem of this team was its defense. They had free agents like Corey Littleton, like Carl Nassib, like Malik Collins, who, let's be honest, they underperformed. They did not live up to expectations. A rookie in Damon Arnett did not live up to first-round expectations. Jonathan Abram, they have got to get him under control. He's a very aggressive player. There's good parts about that. There's bad parts of that. He had trouble tackling. He was rated last among safeties by Pro Football Focus for those eligible. Not a good year. Max Crosby, I thought he was okay. Max Crosby had 7 sacks. It led the team, but it's 7 sacks. Arden Key, no sacks. Cleveland Ferrell, I think, improved from his first year, but he had a long way to go. So if we're going to be honest here, and it got, by the way, the defensive coordinator got fired, with 3 or 4 weeks left in the season after the Colts game. If we're going to be honest, it wasn't a good year for the defense. They've got to get a lot better on that side of the ball, whether it's who they sign, whether who the coordinator is, or getting these guys that they brought in this year to play up to the expectations of those contracts.
So with all of that being said, Ed, if we take the average here, right? You got the A's, you got the F, we put it together, we find the average. Would you say that this season was a disappointment for this Raiders team? I
think when you're 6-3 and you finish 8-8, you have to be disappointed. It's funny, if you go by the sports books in Las Vegas, who know more than anyone, their total was 7.5. So they eclipsed it by a half. They get to 8. So Vegas expected them to be dead flat average, which is what they ended up to be. But I'm sorry, when you're 6-3, it's a disappointment when you finish 8-8. It has to be. And that's one thing with John Gruden and his coaching, he's got to solve. They are not good after week 12 historically during his career, other than a few years, obviously the one he went to the Super Bowl. But they've got to be better after week 10 and 11 if you're going to make the playoffs. How does it start? Finding the right defensive coordinator and fixing that side of the ball. Because I think offensively, they're pretty darn good.
All right. Well, there you have it. Graney's grades.
I give you an A+.
Hey, I'm the only one who's the A+. Look at that. Take that, Daniel Carlson. Ed, thank you so much. It was a pleasure working with you and covering this team this season.
Thank you, Cassie. Thanks a lot.
We are going to take a quick break. We will be right back.
Welcome back to the Vegas Nation Blitz, everybody. It's Heidi Fang here, your podcast host, along with Adam Hill, our NFL writer, and we're going to look ahead here to the NFL playoffs, who's made it in, and what we expect to happen down the stretch. Adam, I want to ask you, because we've been talking about this all along, let's get into the AFC first and the top teams there and see what you think about them.
Well, Kansas City was the team expected to be the number 1 seed from the beginning of the year. They were expected to win the Super Bowl, and they're right where they thought they'd be. Number 1 seed in the AFC, the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Nothing has changed between now and then, but there has been maybe some concerning signs along the way. Kansas City has looked bored at times. They've really just allowed teams to hang around and then just decided at the end of the game, like, okay, now you have to go score and win the game. It's happened on several occasions. I think that they are now really ready to just say, okay, we need to play at our highest level because it's the playoffs, but I don't know how easy it is to flip that switch. So that's something to watch in terms of Kansas City. If they're on their game, nobody's beating them. I know people are talking about Buffalo being hot right now. There's, the Steelers defense can get really good. And if their offense played like it did the second half against the Colts, they could be fine, but way too many troubling signs there as well. The Ravens, I believe, are the hottest team in the NFL right now, but their strength of schedule has not been great down the stretch. If they get that run game going at the level it's been the last few weeks against some of these bad teams, they are a real problem. But of course, it's Kansas City as the big favorite for a reason. And then on the NFC side, of course, it's Aaron Rodgers and the Packers somehow, with all their question marks, just finding a way. We saw Sunday, Aaron Rodgers, when he's at the top of his game, like in the first half against the Bears, it's really tough to beat. So I think if you're looking at, hey, only one team on each side gets a bye, the Packers and the Chiefs get that bye, they get home field advantage throughout, they should have the best path. They do have the best path to meet in the Super Bowl, and who wouldn't want to see Rodgers, Mahomes in the Super Bowl? But of course, if you're looking for spoilers, we talk about a team like the Ravens. The Saints, with Drew Brees back and looking healthy, can potentially ruin things on the NFC side for Green Bay and for the fans that want to see that big marquee matchup. Even the team like Seattle, who their defense has been playing a lot better. Their offense was carrying them early in the year. The defense was terrible. Now the defense is good. The offense is struggling. If they could put it all together, maybe they can spoil things too. But I think right now, the matchup everybody wants to see is Mahomes, Rodgers in the Super Bowl.
Great stuff, Adam. Now, everyone, stay tuned as we look at the Raiders' 2020 season here in Las Vegas and every single game that took place in it. The Raiders started their season on a high note with a come-from-behind win over the Carolina Panthers. The final was 34-30, with the Raiders taking the lead in the fourth quarter and Josh Jacobs pounding the defense for 97 yards and 3 touchdowns. In their first home game as the Las Vegas Raiders at Allegiant Stadium against Drew Brees and the Saints, Derek Carr threw 3 touchdowns to seal their second victory with a score of 34-24. The Silver and Black then traveled back east to face the Patriots and suffered their first loss of the season, 36-20. The Raiders' defense was gouged for 250 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. The Raiders also lost 3 fumbles in the game, from which the Patriots scored 10 points. In Week 4, the Raiders took on the undefeated Bills. The Bills took an early lead, and turnovers and penalties killed the Raiders' attempt to rally back. Despite the loss, Derek Carr posted his first 300-yard game of the season and surpassed Ken Stabler's touchdown record with the franchise when he threw for his 151st career touchdown pass. The final score, 30-23 Bills. As the team went on to face division rival Chiefs, they not only defeated the defending Super Bowl champions 40-32, but also forced Patrick Mahomes to throw his first pick of the season. After their bye week, most of the offensive line had not been able to practice prior to the game after Trent Brown landed on the COVID-19 list. The Silver and Black could not outduel Tom Brady, who threw for 369 yards and 4 touchdowns against them in the 45-20 loss. Back on the road with a snowy day in Cleveland, the Raiders hung on to beat the Browns. Kicker Daniel Carlson booted 3 field goals through the uprights, and Hunter Renfrow scored the only touchdown on the day to best the Browns, 16-6. Against a divisional opponent in the Chargers, the 4-3 Raiders saw a dramatic finish in the game. Second-year cornerback Isaiah Johnson successfully defended 2 touchdown pass attempts in the end of the fourth quarter to give the Raiders a 31-26 win on the road. In Week 10, the Raiders moved to 6-3 with the defeat of the Broncos at Allegiant Stadium. The defense had a stellar day, forcing a total of 5 turnovers and holding the Drew Lock-led team to 12 points. Prior to their second game against the Chiefs, 11 Raiders landed on the COVID-19 list. Only 7 would come off of the list to play in the game, which the Raiders lost 35-31. As the 6-4 Raiders went back to face the Atlanta Falcons, 5 turnovers would be lost in the game, and the Falcons would score more than half of their points off of them. The Raiders only posted 6 points to the Falcons' 43. In Week 13, the Raiders and Jets produced a nail-biter. The game came down to the wire against the winless Jets, and the Raiders prevailed in the final seconds with a 46-yard touchdown strike to Henry Ruggs in the 31-28 win. Against the Colts, the defense allowed over 450 yards to their opponent, and the offense had 3 turnovers, leading to the 44-27 loss. In their homestand against the Chargers, quarterback Derek Carr exited the game in the first quarter after suffering a groin injury. Marcus Mariota came in to relieve him and scored on a 2-yard touchdown run to tie the game in the fourth quarter. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert dove into the end zone for the game-winning touchdown in overtime to post a final score of 30-27. In Week 16, the Raiders fell to the Dolphins at home, bringing their record at Allegiant to 2-6. The team lost by 1 point, 26-25, with the Dolphins bringing in backup quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick in the fourth quarter to best the Silver and Black. The Raiders got a 1-point win to go their way against the Broncos with a 32-31 win in Week 17, overcoming 4 turnovers they had committed and 14 penalties for 111 yards that they had racked up. After scoring a touchdown and go-ahead 2-point conversion, defensive end Max Crosby blocked what would have been the game-winning 63-yard field goal attempt from Brandon McManus to seal the team's victory. Tight end Darren Waller set the new single-season franchise record for most receptions, surpassing Hall of Fame wide receiver Tim Brown's former record. The win put the Silver and Black at 8-8 in their first season as the Las Vegas Raiders. And that'll do it for the Raiders' 2020 season.
Cassie Soto here for Vegas Nation Blitz. I am pleased to be joined by Raiders beat writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Sam Gordon. Sam, we've seen that this episode has basically been, a season wrap-up, talking about the Raiders and what they accomplished this season. So let's go ahead and get your input here, Sam. Give us your season review by the numbers.
Thank you, Cassie. I feel like it's only right. It was an up and down year for the Raiders. That's no secret. They did not finish the way they wanted to. Going 2-5 down the stretch and missing the playoffs. But there were a number of positives. And those, for me, they start on the offensive side of the ball, and the statistics bear that out. The Raiders this year increased their scoring average from 2019 by a margin of 7.5 points, jumping from 19.6 points in 2019 to 27.1 points in 2020. That, Cassie, would be the most they've averaged in a single season since 2002, which also happened to be the year they advanced to Super Bowl 37. So Their best offensive season in nearly 2 decades. A lot to be proud of there. They also finished 8th in yards per game, 383.3, 6th and 3rd down conversion percentage at 45.96%, and 3rd and 4th down conversion percentage at 76.19%. Derek Carr had another excellent year. He established career highs in passer yards and passer rating, 41.03 passing yards, and the passer rating of 101.4 respectively. And then Darren Waller, he catches 107 passes. That is the 3rd most by a tight end in any single season in NFL history. So a lot to be proud of for the Raiders on that side of the ball. It was a playoff caliber offense, but the defense, like we talked about all year, this is where the problem for this team were. They finished 30th in scoring defense, allowing 29.9 points per game, ahead of only the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions. They also allowed 6.0 yards per play, which ranked 26th, and 23.8 first downs per game, which happened to rank 28th in the NFL this season. To me, that a lot of those issues were stemmed by their inability to generate a pass rush. They're in the bottom 3 in sack percentage, bottom 4 in the NFL in sacks. Frankly, not good enough on that side of the ball. So we'll see what happens. Our colleague Vinny Bonsignore reported today, or on Tuesday rather, that the Raiders are going to interview Gus Bradley, former defensive coordinator. So maybe he comes in, a defensive coordinator with the Chargers rather. He comes in, maybe can juice up this defense a little bit. It wasn't good enough. The numbers bear that out. The defense let a playoff caliber offense down.
I don't know if they're going to be getting a whole lot of days off here, John Gruden and his coaching staff. They've got definitely a lot of work to do. Sam, it has been a pleasure working with you covering the Raiders this season. Thank you so much. You've done a great job.
Thank you, Cassie. Appreciate everything, and we'll see what happens moving forward.
That is officially a wrap for Vegas Nation Blitz. We've so appreciated you tuning in with us every week as we've followed the Raiders' inaugural season in Las Vegas. As always, if you're looking for more Raiders content, you can check us out at vegasnation.com or download the Vegas Nation app. For our entire Vegas Nation crew, thank you so much again. I'm Cassie Soto. We'll see you next time.